Hey, we are live. Hi, how are you doing, Pritika?
Hi, Nidhi. Thank you. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm great. Hello everyone. This is Convince Me to Read the Book, and we are today with Pritika Rao, and we are going to have a lot of fun. So, first of all, let's again get introduction from Pritika so that you all know more about her. Go ahead.
Okay, so I am, as I said yesterday, I'm a new mom that takes up most of my time and is a core part of my identity now. But I'm also an economist and a writer, and I live in Bangalore.
Oh, that's really nice, Pritika. As you said, right? You're a new mom. So we also had Ashwini with us in earlier videos, and I would love to tell you more about that and also know more about that experience. So first of all, we'll now continue talking about your book, which is Eclipse on Joypiter. And as you said, that there are three parts. So yeah, introduce us to that.
Okay, so um, basically, the book is a collection of 25 poems. Let me just show you the book. So this is what it looks like. This is the cover. I actually wrote this book a really long time ago, so I had to go back and read it as well. And the way I wrote it was I divided the book into three different sections. So the reason I called it Joypiter was it's just a pun on the word on the planet Jupiter. So there are three parts of a shadow that occur when an eclipse typically happens. So they're called the antumbra, the penumbra, and the umbra, and they're all named after Latin words. So you'll know the word ante is like before in Latin, and that is a region from which the obstructing body is entirely within the light source. Then penumbra means almost or nearly, and that's when there's a partial shadow, and the umbra is like the darkest part of a shadow, so that's a complete or total eclipse. So all of the poems that are in these three sections, they follow that kind of tone. So it's like it builds up a little bit, and then it's like a partial sort of like shadow, and then the really dark ones are all the way in the end of the book. So that's how the book is structured.
Okay, so this shadow signifies uh, moods or something like that.
Yeah, so it's the tone or the mood of the poems. You're right. So I'll give you a bit of a background of where I was at this time. So I wrote the book in early 2015, but some of the poems I already had little portions of them written out, because in the 4 to 5 years before I wrote this book, I was going through a lot of transition in life in general. I had moved cities. I was an economist, but I knew I loved to write. Then in a lot of my relationships, because I had moved from a small town to a city like Bangalore, I had to like sit back and think about what kind of person I was, what did I want from life, what kind of relationships do I want. And that meant a lot of like tension in the existing relationships that I had, whether it was friends or family. Every kind of relationship, I think, went through a bit of a transition at that time. So there was a lot of introspection that I did during that time, and a lot of these poems come from that place. So while there was a couple of very like pivotal events that happened at the end of 2014, 2015, that led me to actually putting my thoughts on paper, um, I think a lot of the writing and the ideation came from going through that transition just before that. So thinking a lot about loss, about longing, about identity, about reflecting a lot on the past. So that's the mood of the poem.
That's really really nice, Pritika. And right, as you said, that phase, right? To explain that phase in form of an eclipse, that's a very brilliant idea. And how did you relate to real life with something universal or something like that? It's very interesting to me, and how you could actually just do it like that. It
Thanks.
just
I
seems very magical.
Thank you. I actually I think the poems themselves just came. It was just in the organizing that I actually thought of the moon and the analogy of an eclipse. But I do feel that also as a person, when you go through emotions, sometimes it's not just like you go from happy to sad. Sometimes there's lots of like phases in between that we often don't talk about. And I didn't want the book of poetry to just be very dark. I wanted to show this kind of transition. And thinking about when I wrote this book, I wrote it back in 2015 when people didn't really talk a lot about feelings and emotions and these very raw kinds of things. It was a bit uncool at that time to talk about this stuff. It was just people kind of thought like, oh, if you have these deep emotions, like deal with it privately. Don't make everyone uncomfortable. Put it in a book. Make us read it. What are we supposed to say to you now? Um, but
Right,
I really
exactly.
wanted to show that gradual transition because I feel like people don't just deal with like very extreme emotions on a daily basis. There's lots of our lives that are lived in that in between place, which is why putting the book in that kind of transition was important to me.
So, yeah, it is true that people don't really talk about those things. Even now, if you say that that awareness is very less.
Yeah.
And as you said, you have put all the emotions there. So, like, and you have read it recently. So, how was it like feeling all the emotions? Did you feel like, okay, someone is understanding me through that poem or something like that? Or what was it like?
Uh, so I'll tell you how I felt when I wrote this book. I was very happy after I wrote it, even though the book
Okay.
is a bit like deep and
Yeah.
very
Melancholic.
yeah, very melancholic for lack of a better word. After I wrote the book, I was really happy. So I had like a whole book launch and I invited everybody that I knew and I was very happy about it. But the reaction that I got from people was very like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Like, can we talk about this? Are you all right? Do you need help? Like those kinds of reactions. But there were also a lot of people who said, I was feeling exactly like this and I did not know how to say it. And then there was one line in your poem and that kind of helped like put what I felt into words. Um, so at that time there were a lot of mixed reactions. Now when I read it as a reader and forget about the writing and everything. I was just amazed at how confident I was to write this stuff. I feel like as a writer, after some time, you tend to forget the work that you've done previously. And I read it and forget about form and structure and poetry and everything. I thought about the optimism that I had as a writer and how I was so comfortable saying what I felt, and I was comfortable actually putting it in a book and giving it to someone and saying, here, read of my innermost thoughts, which is really scary for me to do now. But I actually kind of miss that kind of honesty in my own writing. And when I read it, I actually thought I must be a little more honest about how I feel in my poetry. Because after the pandemic, I've been writing more about things like the environment, life, health, more like existential questions. And I guess feelings are also definitely existential, but I sort of discounted this everyday, documenting the feelings in this everyday ordinary life. So I was amazed by the honesty with which I wrote the book.
That's that's really true. It's exactly how you say, right? Because we sometimes even forget that feelings are existent, and it's just we miss out on a lot of things in day-to-day life. It's really nice to have, as I always say, that books are people's best friends.
Yeah.
Yours is exactly like that. Yours is really like that. So, tell us a little bit more about your feelings, as you said, being transitioning from an author to economist to a mom, because there is a lot of stuff going on there as well.
Yeah.
So, how is it? How is that journey like since 2015?
um It's been great. I have really enjoyed this journey. I came into it quite accidentally. I used to read a lot as a young child. I loved to read, and we grew up on this hospital campus where we didn't have a decent phone connection. So forget about a TV or any other kind of technology. So the only things we had were books, and even to get a book, we had to go all the way to Chennai, which was the nearest city. So I would read the same book over and over again, and I loved reading. It was my favorite thing to do. there was no other way to socialize, no other form of entertainment. So books were really my only friends. And ever since I was young, I remember writing as a form of expression. If I didn't know what to do after I had read and I had to put my thoughts somewhere, I would write. So I'd write plays, I'd write letters to my mom, I'd write instructions to my brother, I'd write all sorts of random things. And I have my mom has a little folder of all of the stuff that I've written. I used to write plays that I would force my cousins to enact, or like find somebody on our
Yeah.
campus to do a little play. But I've loved writing. I, for some reason, when it came to studying writing, I never thought of it as a career. I just automatically veer towards economics. There was something in economics as well. I feel that economics also has this aspect of storytelling. You have to be able to tell a story about the economy. A lot of it is guesswork. You just have a lot of numbers and you're trying to make sense of it and you're trying to figure out where things are going to go. So there is a lot of philosophy, thinking, um, guesswork involved in both fiction writing or any sort of writing as well as economics. We're all just trying to build some narrative that we can make sense of. So, in my job, when I was working as an economist, I had noticed that the parts of the job that I enjoyed the most were the parts that involved writing, and I was writing every day. I would actually miss the times when I couldn't write, when I had to stay back at work late and I couldn't go back and write. I realized that that was what I loved doing. And one of my fears becoming a writer was, if I do this full time, will I lose that? But thankfully, after a couple of years of doing this, that hasn't happened. I love to write. It's my favorite thing to do. And I feel like my transition into becoming a mom, I think that for some in some way that's inspired me even more. It's influenced my writing a lot. And in the past year and a half, since I've had her, since I've known that I was going to have her, I have written more than I've written in all the years before that, from 2015 until 2020, late 2021. um, I didn't write as much as I've written in the past year and a half. So I feel like I'm just getting started. I'm really excited for all of the stuff that I can write. And I feel like I'm in a very inspired place.
It is very like almost like a roller coaster because going from there to and still you're connecting everything to writing.
Yeah.
All of the things you said just now were somehow connected to you as being an author and how much you love writing. And no matter what you are doing in life in general, you are just always inspired and always continuing to write, and that is really inspirational to others as well when you speak of those things because you see as you said feelings, right? And I as a person have always enjoyed writing. I write blogs and all, and it is, yeah, scary for me too because if I do something else and what if I miss out on writing. uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, that part is always there. So could you tell us how to, like, that little child in there which has dreams of writing or something like that, to always preserve them? How do you do that? So, because we all have doubts sometimes, and you continue to write. How do you do that?
I would say my main thing is, for me, it is to go back to authors that I love and their writing. And when I read authors that write really amazingly, I always feel like that's an amazing story. Maybe I also have a story I could write like that. So going back to that kind of style, being inspired by that. For me, another thing is being in nature. I love, like, every time I'm traveling somewhere, it almost feels like a work trip because I have so much writing that I feel like doing on that holiday. And I'm always sitting in the cab with some notes, or in the airport somewhere, or with my little book writing something. I always feel very inspired by travel. Especially to places that are heavily nature centric trips. If I go to the beach or if I go to the hills, I feel like I write a lot. um, so I would say those two things: reading extensively and being in nature. And now I think having my daughter, just seeing her do things, every small thing has so much significance, and I feel like that automatically translates into poetry so easily. Just the things she notices, the things she does, the way she responds to very normal things like a butterfly or a flower, or dirt on the ground. I find just these everyday moments very, like, impactful now.
That is the, like, you spoke like a true writer, and yeah, as you can see, there is a lot of wind here. So forgive me for that. I like, not that I can do anything about it. Yeah, so it's exactly as you said, when you continue, just continue doing what you enjoy and you do it every day, it just becomes a habit. And that's how you cope with all the things that there are life gives you. And maybe that is what you also say in so
That's very
sorry. Yeah, that is exactly how you have structured Eclipse on the Joypiter, right? The phases you go through, the phases that come, and how did you think that writing it in poems and not a straight story would work out?
mm, that's a good question. Why didn't I think of a novel? Um, I the reason I love poetry is because there's brevity in words, right? You have only like a few words, and I feel like you can, as a reader, you can fit yourself somewhere in those words, um, and you can say a lot when you're saying very little. You don't have to give away too much, but you can convey just enough. You can feel deeply, but you're not like giving them the whole picture. You know what I mean? So I love that
Right.
about
So,
um, poetry. And you can sort of
yeah.
like absorb the words, and those words become yours. You remember these things later. It's more like memorable. um, I also love fiction writing. I love prose. I am working on a series or a collection of short stories now, but I feel like the words in a short story, they belong to the character. That narrative belongs to the characters in the story, that setting, that environment, that atmosphere. But when you read poetry, you can sort of claim those feelings and that place and that time as your own, and it's sort of timeless in that way. It's not set in any specific time.
Yeah.
I read it in 2015. I'm reading it now. It means something completely different to me now. So I love
Okay.
that. I love that thing about poetry. It's not bound by any structure or time or anything. It's timeless in that way.
So anyone reading it at any time could really feel it within themselves and just be
Yeah.
inspired and whatever the book has to offer, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as exactly as you said, that fiction or anything like that has a structure and there are characters, and just, then there is poetry, which is exactly what you need sometimes when you are just feeling lost and you want
Yeah.
to do something like out of the box. And that is really great, Pritika. And I love how you explained it. And as you said, it's a narrative. So suppose that I am reading this book today, and is it will it be like, okay, this is what I'm feeling at this moment, or can I relate it to my past experiences, or would I be taken to the future or something like that? Is it anywhere any sort of thing like
I guess it depends on your own past experiences. It's more reflective in the sense that it probably will push you a little more towards your past than it will to your future. It'll probably push you in the direction of thinking about themes like loss or longing for something, or questions of your own identity, or what your point of view on the world was in the past. It's not very future centric, but it hopefully will help you think a little bit about deeper feelings that you may be not discussing in these areas.
that? So what could be the best time reading the book right now?
Anytime. Whenever,
Anytime.
yeah, whenever you
Uh,
feel you have the time to reflect a little bit on what you're reading, then I think like pick up this book. So
yeah.
in a commute, when you're traveling somewhere, maybe when you have a few hours to just like, maybe what I like to do when I read poetry is to leave some time to journal after that.
Hmm.
Um, so to somehow reflect on what I've read, which I don't do a lot with prose. Somehow those characters just stay with me anyway. But poetry, I feel like there's no specific character, so you can like either take it or leave it in that one moment. And if I feel like I'm really enjoying a poem, then I want to like write something about it, either in my journal, or I want to write like a poem that I'm inspired by through reading this poem, in a way to like sort of keep that poem with me. So
Awesome. So, if I'm not asking too much, could you also share a little one poem from your book? Could you read it for us? If
yeah.
that's possible, that's all right.
Okay, I'll pick a short one.
Sure.
Mm, Okay, it's a poem called Love and Physics, and it's on page 47 of the book. Okay, it says, measure me time as clock hands slowly circle. Is it television black and white? Moving earth into dark or light? Measure me distance. Should I break out the compass, walk under bridges broken, perhaps over distant mountain, or search for direction from within? If you are so far from me, but time hasn't moved at all, and if speed is distance over time, will you be quickly mine?
Oh my God, that was so nice. So I
Yes.
can now see why you related it with physics as like Joypiter and Jupiter. It's all
Yeah.
about, is the whole book is going to make us feel this way? It was very lovely.
Thank you. I'm not very sciencey, so that's probably the closest you'll get to science and connecting all things together.
No.
But it's one of my favorite poems in the book, just because of the time when I wrote it. So
It is really, really nice. It is exactly what I needed to hear today because it's a Saturday, it's a weekend, and to have something so beautiful in this time, with the wind blowing and the weather is
thank
really nice. And as you mentioned, it was very great. It really inspired me, and now I started loving because I loved it so much.
thank
So
you.
sorry about yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. It was very great. So how, okay, you said you journal together with the reading. Okay, how do you want or like have you any expectation that okay, the reader will when they read this, they might journal it this way or they might journal it that way, anything like that as an author.
So one of my main things as a writer is to hopefully convince everybody else that they're also a writer. I don't have any professional qualifications. I'm just someone who loves to read and who loves to write. I haven't even taken like an intensive course or anything. I've taken like maybe a few like 1 or 2 hour courses here and there. But my main education for writing, if you would call it, is just reading. And I hope that if people read my book, that they will feel that they can also write. They can write prose, you can write a blog, you can write poetry. And I feel like there's sort of a misconception about poetry that it's this very highbrow thing that only like literature students or people who are very serious in life read poetry. But I'm hoping that now with Instagram, there's so many great poets on Instagram, right, who write very like simple but very profound things. So I'm hoping that in this age more people will write about their feelings, because I feel like sometimes feelings are hard to talk about. Sometimes you can tell people how you feel and it's not their fault, but they don't know how to be there for you in that moment. They don't know how to react. Everyone's just learning together. um, so I feel like if you don't have someone that you can talk to about something and it's very deep, and you sometimes you don't even know what that feeling is until you start writing about it or start talking about it. And I'm hoping that people will go back to something like writing as a form of reflection, as a form of getting to know themselves better. Introspection is a hard thing to do sometimes, but I hope this book allows people to be raw, be vulnerable with themselves. And maybe if you can't tell someone how you're feeling, you can show them things you've written, and then they will be able to understand you a little bit better. So I'm hoping that their writing can be an outlet, but also a tool to help understand one another better.
That is so deep, and it's really nice. I just, I have this thing about writing myself, and the way you put it, I couldn't have explained it better. Like, okay, to have something as an outlet and as well as the tool you said, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. We need something like that I think we need this every day because as we talked about earlier, feelings are something we miss out on a lot.
Yeah.
If something is there, if something
Yeah.
is there, even just a little one page or one poem, it's really great. It feels so great to have because many times we even forget that there are people around us who we can talk to,
Yeah.
and exactly this having something like this is very inspiring. So yeah, everyone, this is how Pritika's book is going to make you feel. So what are you waiting for, really? It's all awesome and amazing. Eclipse on Joypiter. I would love to know more and read more about it. So yeah, I'm definitely going to go get the book, and
Thank
I have put it put it in the description box as well. So you all can find her book there. So yeah, don't wait at all. Just go grab the book and let us know how you felt about the book more and more. And we'll maybe sometime in the future we'll connect with Pritika again if she has some more fun stuff to read and if she had more fun
I would
stuff
love
to
that. Thank you for having me.
read. Right. So now for our last question, and this is a surprise for all the authors that are coming up here. You get to ask me one question about our journal. The platform Cafe Pulse has a journal called My Little Book of Affirmation. So you get to ask me one question about that journal, and that may convince you to get the job. So this is the journal, My Little Book of Affirmation.
So cute.
Yeah. So
Question. Hmm. Okay, why did you create this book? What were you hoping it would do for someone who buys it? And can I ask like a second question? What is your favorite part of the book?
oh,
Favorite section?
okay. Those are really good questions. Okay, let me think a little. So why did I make it? As your book has everything you said, right? An outlet. So when I was after COVID and everything, I learned a lot, and I had to do everything by myself. I had to stay at home. Like we all had to stay at home, and there were people all around, but we cannot really connect to everyone on the daily, right?
Yeah.
And so I had books, I had a lot of YouTube videos, inspiration and everything. So sometimes that inspiration is the external inspiration is just there. It fades
Mm.
away over time, and so I used to write a lot, and then I thought, okay, maybe if someone out there could get help from something like that, something so minimal that we just ignore it, but something so important because you are not at all expressing what you feel, and that just stuck somewhere, and then you're again sometimes feeling lost and demotivated, all of those things. So I created it for that. So maybe even one person out there gets like some way they think that okay, this book helped me a lot, this journal, writing it down, as I said, external inspirations just fades away. So whatever you write in this will be your own words. It will be like a note to your future self sometimes, and your present, everything like that. So that is why I created this journal. That is what I want to do with this. And there will be more coming, but yeah, this is one thing for now. And my favorite part, of course, my favorite part are the affirmations because they are like really the things that have helped me a lot from 2020 till today. I did not used to believe that these things are at all that much helpful at all before, because there was no concept of inspiring yourself or
Mm.
being self-aware or anything like that. But
Yeah.
now, yeah, when you say it enough, you become it, and that is really true. So that's the thing. I have a little bit affirmations for every phase of day and emotions or whatever you're feeling about your body, about your mind, about everything that is you yourself. So that is how it is. That is how this journal is. How do you feel about it?
Very nice. I'm a big believer in affirmations myself. And it's true, a lot of people talk about creative professions as coming a lot from inspiration. And I'm guilty of doing that in this conversation itself, talking a lot about inspiration. But actually, a lot of people don't talk about the discipline that it takes to just show up every day and write. And sometimes it's so difficult to think about something new to say, something different to say. The challenge sometimes when you read so extensively is that, oh, everybody's already said everything. Now, what do I write about? Like, what is new? What is my perspective that's not already out there? And for a writer, you're right, it's actually very lonely to show up every day. There's nobody checking if you're writing, nobody checking how much you've written. It's all up to you, right? Like you're your own
Yeah,
boss in a way. um, Also, rejection is a very real thing for a writer. If
yeah.
you submit a lot to places and you hear no all the time, if you don't have things like affirmations like you do, like you have in your book,
Mhm.
and you don't have that drive or that discipline to keep going despite all of the loneliness and the rejection, then it's very easy to get discouraged. My brother-in-law always says, normally people always say practice makes perfect. He says practice makes progress. And I think affirmations are really helpful with that, to just help you like take the next step, make a little bit of progress every day. Just practice, just show up, just exercise that discipline. So I think it's really cool. I'm going to buy this book for sure.
Thank you so much, Pritika. That was it was really awesome talking to you, and I loved every part of it. And of course, I'm going to get Eclipse on the Joypiter. It was very, 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 very awesome. So yeah, let's stay connected, and we'll get in touch more often about writing and about your book. We'll have
Definitely, I'd love to talk to
yes.
you. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you so much.
this platform and doing this for so
Exactly.
long, because it's really nice to actually think about why you're doing what you're doing and what your writing is about. So thank you for that opportunity as well, and for such a lovely conversation. Thank you.
I will have more questions for you next time, but yeah, that'll be all for now. And it was very awesome talking to you, Pritika. So everyone, this is Convince Me to Read the Book. Today we are with Pritika Rao, and we talked a lot about her book Eclipse of Jupiter, which is awesome and is going to make you feel very real feelings, the feelings which you might have been somehow keeping aside to deal with them later. So now is the time to get the book, read it, and just go on a ride to join.
Thank you.
That was all. That was. Thank you so much, Pritika, and thank you so much everyone for joining us. We'll have more such conversations in the future. We'll have more awesome authors, and we'll stay in touch with you guys. Yeah, so that would be all. Thank you so much, Pritika. We'll see you again sometime. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. And you can find the books in the description.
Yes,
So go
please.
get them. Bye bye.
Bye.